Hello and welcome to my HLX. Since the beginning of the Arab Spring in 2010, the increase in turmoil in the Middle East and North Africa has led to millions of people fleeing their countries to seek asylum in Europe. This has contributed to an influx of stateless people in the Mediterranean Sea traveling in inhumane conditions. It is a vicious cycle which has attracted many non state actors such as NGOs, IGOs, and aid agencies to help solve the humanitarian crisis. Hence, in this presentation, I will be analyzing the research question: to what extent do NGOs have a positive impact on the protection of migrants crossing the Mediterranean Sea? And what role does interdependence play in it? To define a migrant is someone who goes to live in another country or area, especially in order to find work, is yet to claim asylum, and may or may not be a refugee. The global political challenge imposed here is that of borders, which are defined as internationally agreed upon boundaries between nation states and are central to the concepts of internal and external sovereignty. This brings me to the next point, which are my key concepts, which will be interdependence, sovereignty, and human rights. I will be analyzing the issue at a national, regional, and international level through the liberalist or capitalist approach while acknowledging many realist arguments. The main stakeholders to the issue in my specific case study will be African migrants embarking from Libya, the NGO Proactivo Open Arms, the Libyan government, and EU member states, mainly Spain and Italy. Moving on to the case study. On 11th November 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, this picture of 6-month-old Joseph, who was later reported dead, brought the grave situation back into light. He was one of the 74 migrants who died in a shipwreck off the Libyan coast of Combs, as reported by the International Organization for Migration. This was during a rescue mission carried out by Proactivo Open Arms, and the rest of the migrants were sent to Italy, where they completed a 2-week quarantine period and then filed their claim for asylum. Open Arms is a Spanish NGO which was founded in 2015 as a rescue operation in the midst of the migrant crisis, which is still ongoing but is mainly defined as the period between 2014 and 16, when there was a sudden influx of migrants seeking to reach the EU. It has saved more than 60,000 migrants today and was also the only functioning rescue team in November 2020, as many countries had completely shut off their ports, which is the reason why the crew was overwhelmed, and it led to the death of at least 74 migrants, and these are only the reported cases. To understand the case study better, we have to have a look at a map. The Mediterranean Sea is basically divided into many search and rescue zones. Ideally, depending on the zone in which the migrants are found, the specific country is responsible for their safety. The main problem lies when the migrants are found in the Libyan search and rescue zone, as finding migrants there would mean returning them to the same detention camps that they left from, and which is why the crew of Open Arms usually waits exactly at the end of the Libyan search and rescue zone. Now that we are familiar with the issue, I will be analyzing it from different perspectives. The first one being the perspective of the NGO itself. Through the liberalist lens, Open Arms is promoting interdependence, not only among EU member states, but the EU and countries in North Africa, as it seeks help from border control on both sides. Further, it has gained international support as it is protecting the right to seek asylum of vulnerable individuals and is solely taking more humanitarian actions than all state actors combined. It requires more help from both state and non-state actors to prevent what happened on 11th November 2020. However, that being said, there is a negative side to the NGO, which brings me to the next perspective, that is the European Union's perspective. I will be analyzing this at a regional level of analysis. In 2018, many member states of the EU persecuted rescue teams, including Open Arms, accusing them of aiding human trafficking and smuggling people into the EU through the Mediterranean Sea. Along with this, there were several human rights violations committed against the very migrants which they are claiming to protect. The stance of the EU is also backed up by the claim that the presence of such rescue teams attracts migrants to leave their home countries in the first place. It is hence only providing a superficial solution and ignoring the deep-rooted cause of the issue. As seen at many instances in the past, the EU has always had an idealist approach, that is to resolve conflicts at its very source, which might not always be possible. As seen in the case, and in the specific case study, it refers to solving conflicts in Libyan detention centers. Now, moving on to a very important stakeholder, that is Italy, which is a member state of the EU, and I will be analyzing Italy's perspective at a national level. Looking at Italy's actions from its national interest, it is seen that it's beneficial for it to completely close off its borders. Italy is currently bearing the biggest strain and is urging other EU countries to attend to the request of seeking asylum, claiming that many of these migrants aim to reach northern Europe. Sicily in Italy, which is the area marked in red, is where most Libyan refugees from the NGO Open Arms are currently being held at. The biggest criticism against open arms was made by Italian politician Toninelli, who said Italy denied entry to Libyan migrants at the border, but had offered to accompany open arms to Spain, provide support, and transfer part of migrants on its vessel for the trip. However, open arms strongly denied taking them into Spain, even though it is a Spanish NGO, which questioned its legitimacy and whether it is capable of providing a solution which is fair to all. The reason given by Open Arms for the same was that the migrants were in a critical state and required immediate assistance. However, the argument was highly contested against by the international community, and it proved that the NGO did not contribute to the very solution that it claimed to achieve. Now that we have looked at different perspectives, through the realist lens, we can also look at how Italy is planning to maintain its self-interest first. Yes. I will also like to talk about how the different key concepts are connected. Interdependence promoted by Open Arms states that the relevance of borders is slowly decreasing, which threatens state sovereignty of member states in the EU, all in order to protect human rights. More specifically, the right to seek asylum, which is a right that in itself extends beyond borders. To conclude, the NGO, especially now, is in severe need of humanitarian aid and assistance. According to the International Organization of Migration, in 2020 alone, more than 900 people had drowned and 11,000 had returned to Libya. It is also going back to the question, it is also necessary to evaluate that even though Open Arms has saved thousands, is it solving the issue or is it the root cause of it, as its presence encourages migrants to embark on this dangerous journey in the first place, providing a sort of safety net to the EU? With NGOs promoting interdependence and the world being faced by issues like terrorism, climate change, and most importantly, migration, which extend beyond borders, it is likely that borders are becoming porous and old school state sovereignty is eroding. Other links to where NGOs promote interdependence is seen in the case of French NGO Doctors Without Borders, which provides medical help, and the Center of Arab Women for Training and Research, which promotes women's rights in the region, again, regardless of borders. As stated by Nye, there is a clear diffusion of power from state to non-state actors, which directly threatens sovereignty and promotes interdependence, all again for the protection of human rights. Hence, borders remain the core political challenge in this issue and cost the lives of millions like 6-month-old Joseph. Not only the borders stated in the Treaty of Westphalia, but also borders of ethnicity, religion, and gender. Thank you.